Hello and welcome to Betting Weekly WTA, the weekly women's betting podcast brought to you in association with Bet Rivers. I'm Rory Jiwani, and with me to look forward to the new WTA season is Nigel Seeley, the man, the myth, the man with more air miles than Alan Wicker. Nigel, where are you this week?
Good morning to you, or good afternoon wherever you are in the part of the world. It's afternoon where I am, morning where you are, Rory. Thank you very much for that nice introduction. Where I am at the moment, I am in Dubai. It was. I said to the missus, I want to go away for New Year, Christmas with the kids, all family stuff. So we'll go away for the New Year. She said, I'll tell you what, we'll share. You take me to Dubai for Christmas and I'll get you a nice Christmas present. I went, no problem. I bought into it, got a pair of socks. And she's gone to Dubai for it. Well, how did you work that one out? That's not exactly the best thing. So I'm over in Dubai. Unfortunately, I'm not on the halfway stop to Auckland or Brisbane for the WTA start of the season, but I'm over in Dubai getting some sun in for the start of the year. But as we can see, it's a role reversal this year.
New look, new year. Yes, indeed. Forgot to say, Nigel, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays and all that.
Merry Christmas to you and Happy New Year to everyone who's watching here. Who would have thought that changing the format of a show where we've got a proven presenter who works on Eurosport, BBC, and a betting expert who's been never a presenter would actually be the right thing to do, but hopefully it might be all right here. We might have got it right.
It's only taken us 2 and a bit years.
Yeah, who would have thought that? But anyway, let's see how we get on.
Let's see how we get on, indeed. I suppose we need to, before we look at, you mentioned the 2 tournaments, Auckland and Brisbane, we should probably, as we haven't spoken for quite a while, since before the WTA finals in Riyadh, let's have a look at players who we want to keep an eye on this season. I mean, we've got Belinda Bencic coming back from a baby ban. We've got Iga Swiatek, new coach. She had a few issues last season with a drug test, etc., etc. You know, Aryna Sabalenka is the world number 1. Coco Gauff won those finals in Riyadh. Anyone you've got your eye on this season, Nigel?
Well, I think the interesting one would be to hear who you think. So you'll be looking at people lesser than me. But I think it's about some sort of names that we've known for years and years and how they perform next year. I think, in my opinion, I went through a list yesterday over the last couple of days, looking for the top 100 in the women's rankings. And really, I don't see anyone in that 70 to 100 bracket who I think has really got the potential to challenge or do exceptionally well. We know the women's tour is very, very, it's the most competitive tour it's been for many, many years. But I do think that the quality coming through isn't probably as good as what it has been in recent years. So really, it's about the established players, whether they can re-establish themselves this season. So my list is all about fitness players who've had problems. So Badosa is top of my list. I want to watch out how she does. I mean, we saw in patches last season that she had the game to challenge in majors. So I want to see how she starts off. We know she had this in and out love affair with Stefanos Tsitsipas that sort of took all the headlines, and all her Instagram followers were disappointed and upset. And she seemed to have lived that emotional relationship rather than a tennis performance. So I'm interested to see how Badosa performs. Your old favourite, Mukova, if she can stay fit this year, she could potentially win a major. That is a big if. Rybakina, huge year for her. I mean, last year was terrible. New coach now in Goran Ivanisevic. I think she's going to be a major force this year, starting with the Australian Open. Raducanu, who ended the season really, really well. We know exactly, if she can keep fit. Breakthrough players, Mira Andreeva, obviously, we all know about her. The bookmakers, I still feel, have priced her up a little bit on the low side. I think she's, especially this week, but can she go one step further than she has? Deanna Schneider, I think, is going to be a superstar this year. I think she's going to go through the rankings. And the one that I always follow every year, because I wrote an article about 4 years ago, this girl will be number 1 in the world. And I haven't got it right yet, but one day maybe she can. It's Clara Towson. So I always look for her results. I always want her to do well. She's up to 50 in the world rankings. If she can stay fit as well, I think she can have a good year. So it's really, for me, it's about established players. And also, I forgot the major one, Ons Jabeur this season. If she can bounce back from tennis. So these are players that we know who have been at the top echelons of the women's game, whether they can sustain that, have a good run this year, and can we catch them at a nice price before the market sort of realizes they're back to their best. So that's what I'm trying to look for in the early stages this year.
Yeah, I'd go with you definitely on Jelena Rybakina and Deanna Schneider, who I thought was superb last year. And what was really impressive with her was she played so much tennis, but she kept going right to the end, and she really disposed of Katie Boulter handily in the Hong Kong final. And she's I think she's up to 12 in the world now. She looks someone definitely who can break into that top 10. I suppose on the reverse side, I'd be looking at someone like Jasmine Paolini, who had such a good year last year. She's got a lot of points to defend this year. I wonder if she can keep that going. I'm not sure she can. One I think definitely could have a good year is Linda Noskova, who missed quite a lot of last season because her mum died in the summer. I think she sat out after the US Open. She came back at the Billie Jean King Cup and gave Iga Swiatek a real run for her money. But I think she's one definitely to watch this season. Beyond that, Naomi Osaka I wouldn't write off yet. And she's actually high in the markets for one of our tournaments this week. Now, full pre-season under her belt. Maybe early in the season's a time to catch her. Who knows? But we'll look at the tournaments more in depth shortly. This season, this start of the season, we've got United Cup at the moment. A lot of the big players are there. The team event in Australia, played over a couple of different venues. We're not getting involved with that. We're going to look at the two tournaments, the two normal tournaments. We've got the 500 in Brisbane, which is already underway. So the futures market is already suspended, is currently suspended. So first we're going to look at Auckland, which is the 250. This has been the Coco Gauff benefit for the last couple of years, but she's playing United Cup this time. This tournament is a 250. Auckland plays pretty quick. We know that. Madison Keys is the top seed. Elise Mertens number 2. Amanda Anisimova is 3. Lulu Sun, the home favourite, is 4. Your pick, Clara Towson, number 5. Emma Raducanu, 6. Naomi Osaka, 7. And Katie Volinets is 8. So it's not the strongest of events. It's got 2 slam winners in Osaka and Raducanu. What have you made of this tournament, having had a look at it, Nigel?
Well, the one thing I will say about betting on tennis, women's tennis and ATP Tours tennis at this part of the year is don't think for 1 minute that the favourites will go easy to start the year, because everyone wants to start the year fast. The start of any tour, WTA Tour, ATP Tour, the first 2 tournaments, 250s, 500s, favourites want to win those tournaments because they want some form heading into Australian Open, because we've only got 2 weeks before the action starts in Melbourne. So when we look at sort of tournaments before majors, it's the French Open, if it's Wimbledon, if it's the US Open, we always go in there thinking we can fade the favourite. This time around, it's very different. You look through history of winners of the Australian Open, they've always done well, men's or women's. They've very rarely come in. I know Djokovic has come in and won this tournament, the Australian Open in the men's side, when he's come in and hasn't competed. But usually they are players that have done well in the weeks up to the tournament. So everyone wants to start fast. And this tournament is no exception. If you look at this tournament, number 1 seed has won it for the last 3 years. 7 of the last 10 years, the number 1 or the number 2 seed has won this tournament. And in the last 5, not years, but obviously we had the COVID years, but in the last 5 times this tournament has been competed, the number 1 or number 2 seed has won this tournament. So it's essential that key players who have aspirations to win the Australian Open or go deep in the Australian have to do well here. On the flip side of that, nobody in this tournament is going to go deep in the Australian Open. It's drastic. So that stat we can throw out the window, because the number 1 and number 2 seed here are Madison
Nigel, you've
King.
Talked it all up, and then you've just said, forget what I just said.
That's why I talked it all up. That's exactly why I talked it all up, to talk it all up, to tell anyone who's followed into that trend to actually. I still think favourites will have a good chance here, but I don't necessarily think the number 1 and number 2 seed are going to go deep in this tournament. But what I'm trying to say to you is that everyone wants to start fast. You need to start fast. But as you said, last couple of years, it was won by Corey Goff. Then we had Serena Williams, who was involved in this tournament as well. So it was a tournament that brought in the best players at a particular time. This offering isn't the greatest of offerings, but it is an intriguing betting heat, as you can see by the betting. Madison Keys is the favourite at $4. Anisimova is $5. Injury hit. if we go through the quarter, I mean, I think the top quarter, Keys and Towson. I do like Towson. I'm going to be kicking myself if she won this tournament 20-1, but I wouldn't be betting her because I think the conditions don't suit her. I think it's a little bit too quick for the Dane. In the second quarter, I think that's the weakest quarter. The Q3, I think, is impossible. I think there's four players in that quarter could easily get through, including Miri Andreeva's younger sister as well, who I think can have a good year as well this year. And in the bottom quarter, Osaka and Mertens, we really don't know what to expect. So it's got a lot of question marks about this tournament. For my idea of the winner, I always look at draws and I always highlight myself to the weakest section of the draw. I think that's the weakest quarter. And I think that's anybody looking at tennis betting. You might have you might look at the list and think I've got to bet that particular player, but what you've got to do is when the bracket comes out and the draw comes out, you've got to see where that player is positioned into the bracket and then work out her probability to get through to the final. So my eyes are always drawn to the weakest quarter, and then I try to take it from there. And without a doubt, for me, Q2 is the weakest quarter in this draw by some way. So when we go through Q2, we look at the potential people who can come through it. And we look at their current form, how they ended the season. And the person I think here, it might come as a big, big surprise to you, but I think it's a player that I've faded for, I must have faded her since she won the US Open. But I think Emma Raducanu has a great chance here at 8-1 to win this tournament. It's a tournament I think it's not going to take much winning. She ended last season in great form. She went deep in a couple of the regular WTA events. She won all three of her matches at the Billie Jean King Cup, and I think if she's going to hit form, she's going to hit form at the peak of her fitness. Halfway through the season, I wouldn't trust Emma Raducanu, but for the first week of the season, she's going to be at tip-top fitness, and at tip-top fitness, she could win this quite easily. So my bet here is Emma Raducanu in Q2, the weakest section of the draw, at $8. I'm only going to have one official play. I'm not going to bet it each way. It's going to be 1 point win on Emma Raducanu. I do like Towson to go, as I said, in my players to follow, but I think it's a little bit too quick for her, the conditions here. So just the one win for me. Q2, weakest quarter, Emma Raducanu, 8-1. Never thought I'd ever say that after she won the US Open, but can't believe it. New year, new me.
Never thought I'd hear you say that. No, I know what you mean about Q2. I mean, for me, the bottom half looks weak. And I've actually gone for two players in the bottom half. Q3, you've got Amanda Anisimova. As you say, her fitness is always a worry. She hasn't played since pulling out injured in Wuhan. She was due to face Marta Kostyuk.
She's not the first person who's gone to Wuhan and come back with
it. Very true.
I think everyone in the world has caught something from Wuhan.
Yes, exactly. Over the last 3.5 years ago, was it?
Yeah.
No, it was more. It's 4. That was 4 years ago. Goodness me. Anisimova, first up, has got Alicia Parks, who was pretty awful for most of last season, but then found some form in the end of season challenger events. She reached a final in Midland. She beat Belinda Bencic, who we mentioned is coming back from her baby break. That was in Angers 3 weeks ago. Feels like some of these players have barely had a break. But Parks, I mean, she's still serving lots of double faults, but she's the ace count is up. And Parks is plus 205 for that match against Anisimova. And I think as well, on the futures market, Parks at $40 is massive. I think the bookies have missed what she's done at the end of last season because they just look at her WTA record and it was terrible. But conditions should suit her. I mean, they'll suit Anisimova as well. But $40 for Alicia Parks looks really big. So I'm going to have half a point each way on her. And in the fourth quarter,
just one thing, Rory. I mean,
yeah.
When we're talking about betting on those quarters, I mean, it's a great bet. The reason I like the way I approach betting is I look at that Q2 and think to myself, well, Raducanu is going to be a very big favourite in pretty much every single match she gets to. So the likelihood of her getting a Q2 is quite strong. the reason I think that Q3 is quite a difficult one is because there's literally, I think there's 5 or 6 players who could actually make the semi-finals. I think it's very, very hard to pick a semi-finalist. Whereas in Q2, I think there's potentially only 2 who could actually make the semi-finals. So I think Q3 is probably the hardest quarter to call. I understand your point of view in terms of that the bottom half is weaker, but to actually specify a winner in Q3, I think it's hard. If you can get Parks through, then you're going to be on you could probably be on a 5-1 shot in the semi-finals. But I think it's so hard because it's so competitive to get that stage. So hopefully you get the bit of luck to get us through there, and that's why I sort of concentrate on that Q2 because I think it was so weak that I'm betting that she gets through there, and then we're in the semi-finals and we've got a tradable position.
Yeah, I mean, my other bet is more along those lines. I mean, I think with Parks, I think she's just too big a price. I think she should be half the price she is. I think the fourth quarter looks almost as weak as the second, and Naomi Osaka's the standout in the fourth quarter. So for me, she's a point each way at $6. If she's anywhere near her best, she'll get to the final. She'll certainly get through that quarter. And then she's in the semis, and maybe, hopefully, Parks Osaka would be the dream semi for me. But just that fourth quarter just looks, the second and fourth quarters do look very weak. I couldn't trust Raducanu. I know what you say about her, no injury worries you'd think at the start of the season. I mean, she's in line to meet Sun in a repeat of their Wimbledon last 16 match, which Sun won, of course. And actually, I mean, thinking about it, I mean, you've almost talked me into Raducanu because $8 isn't the worst price in the world about her. But I'm going to stick to the bottom half and hope that Parks' serve works, and hope Osaka, obviously she played really well at Roland Garros against Swiatek, and she was almost priced based on that for the rest of the year. She was very short for the rest of last year. She's third favourite here. I mean, I can't have her as a bigger price than Anisimova, given Anisimova's injury problems in recent years. So that's the way I'm looking at it. I'm looking at Parks, sort of small bet on a long shot, and Osaka is my main bet.
So what we're going to do here, we're going to go sort of head to head each week on these draws. So it'll be interesting. So I'm just going to go all in Raducanu, 1 unit pick for me. Raducanu at 8-1. I think if she's going to win a tournament, it's going to be in the first couple of weeks when she's fit. 6 weeks in, 7 weeks in, she'll be gassing like me on that Wembley pitch and after 15 minutes the other day. And you're going to go. How are you going to play it? Just win only? You're going to play each way? What are you going to do?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm going to. I always prefer going each way just in case they get to the final. I had so many, but having said that, I had so many go out in the semi-finals last year. It was really annoying. I'm going to go each way on both. Osaka, $6, a point each way, and Alicia Parks, half a point each way at $40.
Made the best man win, Rory.
Made the best man win, yes, indeed. So that's Auckland. I mentioned a match bet I was interested in. There was one other match bet I was interested in. There's a really good Slovak youngster called Renata Jamritkova. She's up against Hayley Baptiste. I think she's plus 188. I think she looks a big price. She's the Wimbledon girls champion. And I'm really interested. We talked about players to follow. I think 17-year-old is one to watch this year because she's certainly talented. She did win a W75 on the ITF tour near the end of the season. So that's Auckland dealt with. Brisbane, all about one player, really. The world number one, Aryna Sabalenka. Very short-priced favourite. I mean, we know Brisbane among the fastest conditions of the year. And Aryna Sabalenka, 2-time reigning Australian Open champion. Doesn't look too difficult. You look at the names in the tournament. Sabalenka, she's the overwhelming favourite. Plus 130. Mira Andreeva, plus 750. Same price as Paula Badosa, who you mentioned earlier. Nigel. Emma Navarro, $9. Deanna Schneider, tempting, $11. Anna Kalinskaya finished the season pretty poorly, $20. Linda Noskova, $23. $25 Yelena Ostapenko, $28 Daria Kazatkina, and then it's $33 bar those, including Ons Jabeur, who's making a bit of a comeback after a lot of knee trouble. It's all about Sabalenka, isn't it, Nige?
Yeah, I mean, she's won the tournament before in 2023. You only got to look at the list of previous winners to see what conditions are going to be like. Rybakina won it last year. Sabalenka won it. Pliskova won it when she was one of the top women's servers. It's going to be a very, very serve-based tournament. The bigger hitters have got the big advantage in Brisbane. But that's factored into the price. She's plus 130 to win it. I think the question for you here is, do you take the plus 130 on Sabalenka to win this tournament? Or do you look for options each way in the bottom half of the draw? And I think that's really the only strategy you have as a bettor here. And with Bet Rivers, we're very, very lucky because they're one of the only sports books across America to offer each way betting on tennis. So you're getting half the odds 1-2. So if you pick a player in the bottom half of the draw and she makes the final, not necessarily win it, you're getting half the odds of her win price to win this event. So that's where my attention's drawn straight away. It would be no surprise to me to see Sabalenka win this tournament. And the way that I said at the beginning of the show that you have to get off to a fast start, the defending Australian Open champion wants to get off a fast start here and get into the groove straight away. So Sabalenka is the girl to beat. She is plus 130. She probably will win it. But I would like, instead of me taking the plus 130 on her to win this tournament, I want to play 2 each way in the bottom half of the draw at bigger prices. And if they get to the final, I'm getting more of a return than I am by taking Sabalenka to win it. So if I break through the draw, Sabalenka top quarter, I expect pretty easy. Q2, I think, is interesting. I think Mira Andreeva is an exceptional talent, but I think the pressure's on the kid. Last season I saw her lose her rag so many times, smash rackets up, lost the plot. Things didn't go her way, and I think that she's really under a bit of pressure. But Dossa's on the comeback trail, but both of them at plus 750 are no value to me. Doshkova, as you said, if she was in the bottom half of the draw, I think she's got a chance, but at the top half of the draw, I wouldn't touch her. So it's all got to be about this bottom half of the draw. And I've highlighted 2, and it's no surprise, probably Deanna Schneider is my first pick. I'm going to go 1 unit each way at 11-1. She had a brilliant season last year, on the verge of breaking through to the top 10 in the world. She can play on all surfaces. I think she is the girl that everybody on the WTA Tour expects to break into the top 10 and potentially the top 5 this year. I think there's a lot of players who are in those positions who can go backward with points to defend. Paolini, you've got Navarro, who I don't expect to have anywhere near the year she had last year. You have other players as well who've broken into that top 10 who are going to drop points. I mean Krejcikova is another player. I think she's going to drop massively in the rankings. She's not in the top 10. Is she in the top 10, Krejcikova? I think she might be just in the top 10.
She might have just got back into them because of the WTA finals.
But I think they're gonna drop out, and it gives this girl an opportunity. She's won a lot of tournaments last season. She won a lot of low-level tournaments, and I think she's going to come in now and have a big year this year. So I think if you look at Deanna Schneider, 11-1, I think in about 4 weeks' time, you're not going to get double-figure prices about her in a tournament like this. And the other girl I like here is the number 3 seed, Kazatkina, at 28. I mean, she's the number 3 seed. She's in a section where you've got Samsonova, who is a big hitter, as we know, but never, ever, ever does anything. Makes quarterfinals, makes semi-finals, but never wins these tournaments. We always put her up in these tournaments because it's a fast server. She's a big server. But for the last season, she's been an absolute fade. Kalinskaya, if it was a Kalinskaya played Kazatkina in the quarterfinals and Kazatkina wasn't the favourite, I'd be amazed. So I'm going to go for Kazatkina at 28-1, number 3 seed in the bottom half of the draw, and Schneider at 11-1. So I'm getting 14-1 Kazatkina to make the final, and I'm getting plus 550 on Deanna Schneider to make the final. If one of them hits the final, it's much better bet than Sabalenka, and hopefully we can get Sabalenka beat, and then one of them could potentially be a lot shorter price in the final if they get there. So 2 each way bets for me against the favourite, is a heavy favourite, and it's a favourite that should win. But I think it's much better value to play each way in the bottom half rather than taking the plus 130 on Sabalenka to win the tournament.
Totally agree with your logic there, Nigel. I mean, I'm all over Schneider for this one. She's a point each way for me as well. Kazatkina is a big price for the 3rd seed, as you say. My worry for her is that these conditions will just be a little bit too quick for her. But at $28, you can take the chance that she puts it together. I completely agree with you on Noskova. If she'd been in the bottom half, she'd have been a bet. In the top half, she's not. But I think we'll get chances with Noskova later in the season, without a doubt. Just a bit unfortunate with the draw. Badosa, you mentioned as one of your players to follow. I mean, I had a couple of near misses with Badosa last season, so I'm still reeling a bit from that. And I think she has a mental issue in slams, would be my concern. Not so much in normal tournaments, but the way she sort of fell apart against Navarro in the US Open just made me think there's an issue there. And she returned to some really good form last season, but she's definitely on my cold list betting wise at the moment. But that's Brisbane, an interesting tournament, but one, as we say, dominated by Aryna Sabalenka. Just quickly, Nigel. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Roy. It sounds like I'm interrupting you, but I'm thousands of miles away from you, and the internet is a bit lagging. So if anybody watches, I'm not being rude. It's just the fact that our internet is with. I tell you, the interesting one in this tournament is Aryna Sabalenka. She's the interesting one. You know, she's 33-1 in this tournament. A fit Aryna Sabalenka would be plus 550. So every time we do these bets as a market maker, and I was a market maker on tennis for years and years and years, you put your prices up. And I have a rating system, and how my rating system works. This is quite interesting if anybody wants to know about betting strategy. My rating system would always be the top rated would get 100. So on this occasion, Sabalenka would get 100, and the second rated one may get 50. And what that meant is if the top seeded player played the second seeded player, the top seeded player would be minus $2. And the other one would be $2 because 100 in the 50s too. If you got a rating of 30, you'd be minus, or 33, you'd be minus $3 against 3. If you had a rating of 10, you'd be minus 1,000 and 10 to 1 to 100%. And I used to work out how I would bet each person to 100%. So the top were 100, and I could pick any two players in the draw, and I'd be able to work out how I would bet each match. Now, Aryna Sabalenka will probably start this tournament with a rating of about 25. Maybe 22, which means if she paid Sabalenka would be around about a minus $4 favourite, something like that. But she could end the tournament with a rating of 40. And that movement, as the tournament progresses, if she shows form, that's how you move players when they do well in the tournament. So Aryna Sabalenka could be the one player in this draw that the market could have completely wrong, and we could be rebasing her after this tournament. So I'm not going to bet her, but not particularly on the money line. Sorry, not particularly on the tournament, but on the money line when she's up against a couple of people, and you might get a plus 120 or a plus 110 in a match that usually should start about minus 150. She could be someone to follow in the first round, second round matches with Bet Rivers on the app or whenever they got their prices, because there could be a big rebase on her. And, you know, that's one thing in betting. Doesn't matter if it's tennis, football, golf, cricket, whatever sport, basketball. And once you see a change in a player, to get in on that player is the best value you're ever going to get. And we're seeing it at the moment in football in this country, in England, in the Premier League with Manchester City. Just the fade of Man City each week are great. That isn't being rebased as the way they are. And Aryna Sabalenka here could be the one player in this draw that you could be having a very different thought of her by the quarterfinals, the last 16 stage, if she gets knocked out. And exactly the same as Raducanu as well. She wins 2 matches impressively. There's a big rebase on her. She's tournament favourite.
Absolutely. Interesting to hear your insights there and your tennis trading days, Nigel. Just going back really quickly, those finals in Riyadh, Sabalenka, I thought, was a cert. And she lost in the group stages to Rybakina. She lost in the semi-finals to Coco Gauff, who went on to win it. I think Coco Gauff could have a really big year. And I know that before we'd sort of written her off as a slow court player, but she won in Beijing, she won in Riyadh in much quicker conditions. If she can get rid of some of those double faults, I think she could challenge Sabalenka this year.
Yes, I think she'll have a good year. I think especially on the when you get to the American hardcourt season, she's going to do very well. I just don't think you should look too much into that form at the WTA Championships. I think if you go back over the last 2 or 3 years, there's a lot of shocks in that event, And it's been at some talk. The one in Cancun was a disgrace, and and obviously this one here, people say they're going there for the money, but they've got so much money now. It's a little bit of a jolly up in Saudi. See what it's like, and Sabalenka probably gets more money to turn up at the Sheikh's party than she does to win the first round match. It's a very different world they live in. So I think I wouldn't get too carried away into that form. I think the player to follow this year, and we touched on at the beginning of the show, I think Rybakina comes back to some kind of form. I think now Goran Ivanisevic is in her side. She's got the best serve in the women's game, bar none, with probably the best server on the men's game that we've ever seen for a long, long time. If him coaching her could make her unplayable when Wimbledon comes around. And I think that will be their focus. So I think it's going to be an interesting season. I think Sabalenka will still be the player to beat. Rybakina, I think will go on to bigger, better things if she can keep her fitness levels high, and Goff will be well. And obviously, we've both been a little bit anti Iga Swiatek over the years, much to a lot of people's dismay on this show. But in particular, one man, J-Rod, who watches every show, and he always does a go at us. But I think that this year you may see that those two players we mentioned there pushing, and we may have a very, very competitive top four in the women's game.
Let's hope so. Well, that's it for the first edition, I was going to say of the year, but it's still 2024.
I know.
Ridiculous how early this season started. It feels like we barely stopped last season. But that's it for week one of this new season of Betting Weekly WTA. Hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you sign up to the Betting Weekly newsletter at www.bettingweeklystudios.com. Follow us on socials, of course, because we win. And so much great content on there, isn't there, Nigel?
Yeah, not only we just started the WTA season and we got the ATP Tour show with Mr. Happy himself, Sean Calvert. Looking forward to working with him. Again, it's really good to be back with you guys as well. We've been a month off, but it seems like ages, isn't it? Like a month off, but it seems like 3 or 4 months. Not only the tennis, the soccer as well has been fantastic form. The European soccer is really hotting up. The Premier League games are coming thick and fast. The Champions League coming now to the real nitty gritty stages. So the next 2 months is going to be really, really exciting. And we're 2 weeks away, or not even that. What was it? Yeah, 2.5 weeks away, or maybe just over 2 weeks away from the first major of the year, the Australian Open, and the content is going to be fantastic. There is no better content, betting content. If you're a serious soccer bettor or a serious tennis bettor, there is no better content than the Betting Weekly Studios that we're providing you here at Because We Win. So make sure you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. We need to get them subscribers up, and we need to get the likes up as well. Give us any comments that you like this week, any players you want to follow as well. Put them in the comments box as well, because it helps the algorithm as well. So it's always very good to get your comments as well. But can't wait. Looking forward to this. Going to really have a go this season, and we're going to cash some tickets. We've got a good feeling about it.
Let's hope so. Cheers, Nigel, and enjoy Dubai. Enjoy the sunshine. And we'll speak again next week for another edition of Betting Weekly WTA.